Chapter 31. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Qiao Qing Persuasion Translator. Lonely Tree. At this moment, the class was so quiet that they could hear a pin drop. The students looked at each other, unable to say a word. In the past, they would believe this was a plot manufactured by Emily, but they knew what kind of character Professor Tao was. He would never stoop to a level of creating make-believe with a girl student. Moreover, the back and forth of the duo's QA was so quick and fluent that it didn't sound like it was rehearsed. She gritted her teeth as she listened to the broadcast. Isn't the bitch supposed to be horrible in her studies? How could she manage to have this academic banter with Professor Tao, and when did she get so good enough in math to represent the school to participate in IMO? Back inside the professor's office, the old crone's face immediately dropped when she heard Emily's rejection. If Tao Wen was not present, she would have said something like, "You, motherfucking little bitch." But she stopped herself. Emily was now in Tao Wen's good book. If she didn't show a good and supportive side to Emily, her career path would be so much more difficult. After all, her plan was to replace Tao Wen as the math subject leader in a few years and then move her way up to become the director. Furthermore, once she cleared her mind, the old crone realized that it was a good thing for her career if Emily was willing to participate in IMO and came back with a first prize for her. It would look so beautiful on her resume. Therefore, she immediately forced a smile and asked, "Miss Emily, do you mind telling teacher why you don't want to participate in the competition?" "Because I don't want to waste time on a competition. I don't need a first place to prove that I'm good at math. I'd rather spend the time to do something more meaningful," Emily answered plainly. Tao Wen shrugged. As a researcher and philosopher, he could understand Emily's reasoning somewhat. The old crone was so shocked by Emily's answer that her mouth hung open. As someone who needed validation and reward for everything that she did, the old crone couldn't understand Emily's pursuit of pure knowledge. All she heard was arrogance from Emily's answer. Emily was not being arrogant. She had made the same decision in her old life. She did not spend her life chasing after accolades and prizes. To her, the pursuit of knowledge itself was its own reward. It was the reason why she managed to achieve the level of mastery as someone like Tao Wen before she even started research school. She took things at her own pace, and managed to sleep punctually every day at 9 p.m. so she had no fear of going bald like Tao Wen. "No," the old crone said in a tone that brooked no argument. The IMO was a prestigious competition. Winning first prize would help propel her career. The old crone had graded Ding Yi's paper. The student was definitely not at the level to score first place. Qiao Qing was okay, but now she had a surefire chance in Emily. The old crone was definitely not going to let that slip. Emily was her ticket to glory and success. "This is a perfect chance for you to bring glory to our school. How could you refuse the opportunity just like that? How could you just think about yourself? You have to consider the honor of the collective student body too." Seeing how desperate and anxious the old crone was, Emily was quite speechless. Earlier, the old crone was the one who challenged the authenticity of her answers, and now she was asking her to participate in the competition. "I do not like crowds." Emily gave an excuse, and a chance to the old crone to let this go. "Miss Emily, you can't act so pampered anymore. If one can't change the environment, one needs to work on changing oneself. See this as a chance for you to improve yourself. Furthermore, this is the chance for you to redeem yourself. Recently, the school reputation has been affected because of you. Don't you think it's imperative of you to do something to help the school recover its damaged reputation? Or do you really think you own the school?" Emily already gave the chance for the old crone to let this be. She did not expect the old crone to be so pushy. "I don't think I own the school, but I don't think you own me either. You speak of honor, but I think you really mean fame, and are we really talking about the school's fame here?" Emily hinted that she knew what was going behind the old crone's little mind. Hearing that, Tao Wen raised his brow with interest. This girl is really interesting. She has the brain and the character to back it up. What are you trying to insinuate? How could you talk to your teacher like that? Aren't you cold taking up all the moral high ground? Emily looked at the old crone. I will not be forced into something that I am not comfortable with. The school has no right to force its student to enter this kind of competition, right? Furthermore, haven't you already decided on Xiao Qing as your representative to participate in the competition? The old crone choked on her word. She didn't expect Emily to have such a silver tongue. Student Emily, I'm doing this for your own good. You knew better than anyone the kind of reputation you currently have around the school. If you win this glory for the school, this will definitely change your peers' perception of you. They wouldn't think you're a heartless person who drove into her own brother anymore. She even managed to squeeze out a few tears, showing that she only wanted what was best for her student. The old crone changed tack and used the age-old, I'm only doing this for your own good argument. This time, she believed the demon girl would have to cave to her demands. Tao Wen looked at Emily with intrigue. Even someone like him, who never dabbled in school rumors, had heard about the car accident. However, he also knew that neither the police or the authority had managed to present any convincing evidence that Emily was the real culprit. Emily shrugged nonchalantly. She was surprised that the old crone would adopt the Xiao Qing persuasion, acting all dewy-eyed, innocent and infinitely caring. Chapter 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Study translator. Lonely tree, a person is dying of thirst and you force feed her dry biscuits, is that considered doing things for her own good? Do not twist my words. I never said such a thing. The old crone voice raised several pitches higher. And it caused a buzz to come from the door. Emily frowned as she moved towards the door. As she opened the door, she saw the small bug immediately. She plucked it off and walked out, waving her hands as she went. Participating in the IMO was a waste of time and it would not mean anything to her. She was not unlike the original Emily, she was not a rebel without a cause. She had clear conviction and self-driven goals, she was not going to let anyone or anything knock her astray from her path. In her past life, Emily had no one to rely on but herself. This came with its upsides and downsides. The downside was that Emily could sometimes be overly willful, unable to empathize with others' feelings. The upside was that Emily had always been the master of her own fate. When she returned to the classroom, Emily went back to her seat like everything was normal. Before she could even settle comfortable, the sounds of criticism came like waves. Look at that face of hers. She only scored perfect in one test and the air has already gone to her head. If you ask me, a model student is someone like our Xiao Qing, who is good at every subject. She really thinks our school wouldn't be able to get first place in the IMO without her. Where did she get that confidence to think so highly of herself? Hearing the whispering, Xiao Qing had to jump in and defend her sister. Girls, please be fair to Emily. She has tried very hard this time. The tutor big brother hired for her is clearly very good at his job. For the past week, she has been studying until midnight and her hard work is paying off. Studying until midnight. Emily frowned. Xiao Qing lives in the small building beside the main house. Where did she get the impression that I've studied until midnight? So what? If you ask me, she's only lucky this time. That's right, Qing, don't worry. During the real exam, she'll score worse than you. Furthermore, we still have Ding Yi. When both of you get first and second places, someone would have to eat her words. Xiao Qing could only smile apologetically as if on Emily's behalf. Internally though, she was worried. If Teacher Sun really picked her to participate in the IMO. Based on the difficulty of the mock exam, she might not do well. Emily was secretly thankful of the person who planted the bug. It made her known around the school as the top seed participant for the upcoming IMO. After all, that had been personally verified by Professor Tao Wen. Therefore, Throughout the day, other than a few girls, who were good friends with Xiao Qing, dropped some sarcastic comments which bounced off Mo Li's skin, no one dared to come find trouble with her anymore. The person who came off worst from the exchange was definitely the old crone. Her conversation with Mo Li inside Professor Tao's office was heard by the entire student body. Her reputation was injured and became a hot topic for the school to gossip over tea. Some of the naughtier male students even dared to mock her as she passed by. Whenever that happened, the old crone would think about skinning and eating Mo Li alive. Mo Li returned to the overwhelming silence at home. When she saw the mountain of paper boxes at the door, she knew that her delivery had arrived. As she walked into the living room, she saw Mo Yi and Mo Yun. The former was reading the newspaper, while the latter was studying up on the latest regulations released by the nation's trade agency. Seeing Mo Li, Mo Yun shot a gaze at Mo Yi. To be frank, Mo Li was a source of minor disappointment for Mo Yi. He had an ideal image of the Mo family daughter in his mind. She would be a gracious lady, a well-reader scholar and an accomplished pianist. However, Mo Yi realized that since Mo Li was young, that was not going to come true. Like most fathers, Mo Yi pampered young Mo Li with fairy tales and dolls, but she soon got tired of them. She could barely sit through a whole story. She claimed that the fairy tales were all lies. She even got into arguments with her parents because of it. Mo Li was registered to take harp lessons when she was 6, but she would never pay attention during classes. After chasing away 3 music tutors with her antics, her parents finally gave up. Her attitude didn't change for the better after she got older. After all, her class teacher had called more than one time to talk about Mo Li's rebellious and unbecoming attitude. She even scored a fat 0 for a few of her tests. Members of Mo family were all good students. They aced their academic subjects and were proficient with many other skills. Mo Li. Mo Yi began with a severe expression. After all, Mo Li's future hung on the line. As her father, he had the responsibility to have this talk with her. I know you've been studying very hard recently, and it is not that you can't splurge on a few things to reward yourself, but you still have to focus on your studies. High school is the turning point in many people's lives. Mo Li did not say anything but did acknowledge Mo Yi's words with a nod. Chapter 33. You are listening at novelfull.audio. House Visit Translator. Lonely Tree. Mo Li glanced at Mo Yun. This was probably his doing. After all, he had not seen her with a book whenever he came home, so he assumed that she had not been studying. The children of the Mo family have to uphold a certain standard. Take for example your 3 older brothers. Even though they were already pursuing different careers when they were studying, their starts in the fields of business, politics and entertainment never affected their academic results. Noting the lack of reaction from Mo Li, Mo Yi could only sigh helplessly. He didn't know how much of his advice had really registered with his daughter. If this continued, he really would have to send his daughter overseas to study. The thought of that instantly brought Mo Yi headache. If he dared to do that, he would have to answer to his parents. They would not let him off the hook so easily. Just as he was about to say something more, the door bell suddenly rang. Mo Yi and Mo Yun shared a look, as if asking the other if they were expecting any guest. After getting an affirmative no from his father, Mo Yun stood up and walked to the door. An unfamiliar face greeted him. It was a senior man with white hair and strange attire. He was dressed in a T-shirt and a colorful long-sleeved shirt jacket, definitely not suitable for someone his age. It made him look like a child. "Hello, is Miss Mo Li home?" Even though Tao Wen was not really a social person, he knew he had to personally pay a house visit if he wanted to persuade Mo Li. "Ha! Is that you, Professor Tao Wen?" Mo Li gasped in shock. This was because she heard that Professor Tao Wen never drove or took any vehicle because the odds of dying in a vehicular accident was too high. "Prof, how did you get here?" Mo Li couldn't help but ask. Tao Wen pointed at the bicycle parked at the door and said, "I cycled here of course." BDNVL.M. After inviting the old professor in, Mo Yun shot a look at Mo Yi. This is the type of teacher they have at Mo Li's school. Are you sure this is a good school we've sent Mo Li to? Mo Li made the introduction. Professor Tao Wen is the math subject leader at our school. He has over 176 IQ and has master's degrees in applied mathematics from Qingbei University and theoretical physics from Caltech. Mo Yi had heard of this old man before. This senior professor was a genius. He went to university at 12 and was a guest lecturer at Heidelberg when he was 17. With ease, he gained 2 masters and 1 doctorate. Even though he had a very high IQ, his EQ was practically zero. The man was an eccentric since he was young. He was adamant that there was no one cleverer than him in this world. He even believed that he was omnipotent. Mo Yi felt a headache coming. How did his daughter get mixed up with this eccentric old man? What kind of trouble she had gotten herself into this time? Mo Li though could empathize with Tao Wen's eccentricities, because in a way Mo Li was not that different from him. Even now Mo Li had interpersonal problems and refused to be too close with people whom she was not familiar with. But Tao Wen's condition was more severe than hers. He refused to accept anything that he saw as illogical and could not be calculated. Mo Yi's headache intensified seeing that Mo Li's teacher had come personally to visit them. This couldn't be about any good news. "Sir, just voice any complaint that you have. Has Mo Li been up to no good at school again? I am so sorry on Mo Li's behalf." Even though seconds ago, Mo Yi was urging his daughter to pay more attention to her studies, when Mo Li's teacher showed up, the first thing he did was to apologize for Mo Li and tried to prevent his daughter from being punished. Old habits die hard. Did she not finish her papers? Tao Wen shook his head. He was confused by the way the Mo family was acting. Tao Wen had no idea that Mo Li used to hand in empty scripts. Then has she done something worse? She didn't go to school. She played truancy. No, it's not that either. Mo Yun finally cut in. Then, why has Professor Tao personally come to visit our home today? He could barely rein in his disappointment anymore. He thought his sister had finally learned her lesson, but she was only acting around him. Once she returned to school, her true colors were revealed. She had not learned anything after all. Tao Wen frowned. He was shocked that the Mo family would have such little faith in their daughter. Suddenly he felt a surge of pity for Mo Li. Growing up with such lack of encouragement, she could still blossom against all odds. She was truly a gem to be discovered. I'm here because Mo Li has managed a perfect score in our school's IMO mock exam. Tao Wen said evenly, not noticing the expression that had frozen on Mo Yun and Mo Yi's faces. That is the main reason I'm here today. Chapter 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I agree. Translator. Lonely Tree. Tao Wen took out Mo Li's test paper and the notice for IMO. I designed the questions for the mock exam myself. They're slightly more difficult than the real test. The best student in class, that Xiao Qing, can't finish my paper, but Mo Li did. Tao Wen handed the paper to Mo Yi and Mo Yun before he continued. She not only finished the paper, she did it with flying colors. She managed to solve a few problems in ways that I never even imagined. Are we talking about my daughter? Mo Yi could not believe his ears. After all, Mo Li's math result had always been a concern of his. Whenever he asked why she scored 0 in her tests, the answers he got were direct and straightforward. I didn't know how to answer them, and I didn't want to. Therefore, it came as a total surprise to him that Mo Li actually was very good in math. This was a surprise for Mo Yun as well. Mo Yun took a cursory glance of the test paper and it was indeed above standards. But Mo Li used to tell them that she didn't like math. She'd faint when she saw so many numbers. So what really happened here? At the thought of this, Mo Yun raised his eyes and took a deep look at Mo Li. Could it be that we have misunderstood Mo Lee all along? It caused her to clam up, and the string of bad results was a silent protest. Instantly this reminded of Mo Yun of Lil 3's car accident. Initially Mo Lee also did raise protest, but for some reason, she suddenly gave up her argument and submitted to the guilt. Now that enough time had passed, Mo Yun could also look at the incident more clearly. The evidence was lacking, and all they had was Mo Zheng's accusation. However, the day of the accident was raining heavily. It was not impossible for Mo Zheng to have seen the wrong person, or perhaps it was someone who took on Mo Lee's disguise. Mo Yun gripped his fists. Mo Lee has been acting very much unlike herself lately. Is it because we have really gotten everything wrong? And that is the reason behind her sudden change. After Lil 3's conditions recover, I'll have to ask him about the incident in more details. In any case, that did not explain why Tao Wan had paid them a house visit. Professor Tao, thank you for coming to tell us about the IMO. Is that all the reason why you're here today? Tao Wan took a glance at Mo Lee. He could recognize the stubbornness and willfulness in the girl, but for the sake of her future, he still hoped that Mo Lee could represent the school to participate in the IMO. If she could get the first place, she might get offered a guaranteed admission into a good university. It's like this. Our school needs someone to participate in the Pearl River City IMO. The person who gets the first place here will be given a chance to enter competition on the district and eventually the national scale. Moe was stunned. This was something that would only happen to his 3 sons in the past. This was the first time such an opportunity would be offered to his daughter. This is a good news. Of course, she'll participate in it. Mo Yun also got his guaranteed admission to his alma mater thanks to his first-place result in the International Chemistry Olympiad, ICHO, and International Physics Olympiad, IPO. But Tao Wan was anxious before he arrived at Mo family. After all, Mo Lee was quite adamant this afternoon. However, after getting the positive reception from her father and brother, Tao Wan saw a chance for a fight. Mo Lee, don't tell me you have given up on this precious opportunity. Moe noted Tao Wen's troubled expression and knew that the problem must have laid with his daughter. This chance doesn't come that often. You gave it up like that without a second thought. Father, I wish to spend more time studying at home. I do not want to focus entirely on math. Every subject deserves my attention. Moe Lee answered honestly, although the other subjects were not the kind that was taught at her school. No matter how useful they were. Now, Mo Lee's current goal was to help Mo Zheng heal as soon as possible. The IMO is tough, but with your current standard, we can come up with a set of daily training questions. When you're done with them, you'll have the rest of the day to focus on your other subjects. We'll finish these math problems as soon as possible, then you'll have time to follow on your medical research. The proclamation suddenly echoed in Mo Lee's mind. As mentioned earlier, in Mo Lee's original life, there was a math teacher who saw the potential in Mo Lee. But at the time, Mo Lee only had the interest in forensic and medical science. She couldn't care less about anything else. She rejected the teacher many times until he gave up on Mo Lee. He was technically the first mentor who had faith in Mo Lee, but he was soon swept away by Mo Lee's determination to push forward in medicine. Mo Lee ended up with double masters and were applying to Princeton for experimental physics when she transmigrated. Thinking back, the teacher was more than Mo Lee's mentor, he was also her good friend. There were few moments when Mo Lee's schedule slowed down and when she was alone with nothing but her research that she wondered what had happened to him. She regretted breaking off that relationship. To think that this situation would represent itself again in this manner, it was quite surprising. Mo Lee, this is a good opportunity for you. If you are willing, I will have your older brother and second brother help tutor you in your other subjects so you wouldn't fall behind. Moe suggested. Chapter 35. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. A Chance Encounter Translator. Lonely Tree. Mo Lee thought about it before finally nodded. Mo Lee in the novel had a bad end because she got estranged from her family, so to spare herself the same fate, Mo Lee decided to maintain a good relationship with the Mo family. Since Dad and brother are so supportive of me, Professor Tao, I'll have to infringe on your time until the competition. Mo Lee has really changed. Mo Yun looked at his little sister and felt so comforted. Her sudden love for study probably has to do with the week that she was grounded. Looks like I'll have to increase Han Su's pay and get him to come tutor Mo Lee more often. Then it's decided. Mo Lee will stay after school every day to complete some mathematical exercises with me. She'll return later than normal, but the school will provide extra security, so Father Mo, Brother Mo, please do not worry about that. Moe nodded. He had confidence in the school's security. Since Mo Lee had finally shown the interest in academic, of course, as parents, he would provide his greatest support. He didn't mind even if Mo Lee didn't get a good result at the IMO as long as she was serious about her studies. Be no calm after Mo Lee agreed to participate in the IMO, her life revolved around only 3 places, Tao Wen's office, her class and her home. But there was a good thing about this too. She was so busy that she didn't have the time to check the brainless comments on the school forum. If you ask me, Mo family must have bribed old man Tao, or else why he only gives Mo Lee special treatment but not Xiao Qing in Ding Yi. But Mo Lee has done really well in the mock exam this time. You're too naive. As long as there's money, you can score any points you want in a test. The real victim here is Xiao Qing. No matter how hard she works, she can't beat the pure power of cold hard cash. The bitch is truly disgusting. She is a psychopath. She attempted to murder her own brother and now had her family bride old man Tao for the sake of fame and glory. Why does she want to be in the limelight so badly? As rumors were prone to, the online comments were straying further and further away from the truth. You'd think someone was purposely directing them down that direction. Either way, Mo Lee was too busy having a life to care about them. Mo Lee did stay after school to practice for the IMO with Professor Tao, but she underestimated the old man's cunningness. These questions are beyond IMO's level. The questions he had her solved were at a research university level that even Mo Lee had to process them before she could come to the solution. But Tao Wen did hold up his end of the bargain. He would instantly let Mo Lee whenever she was done with the set of questions he had for the day, as if worried that he might push her to renege on her promise. And that was how Mo Lee managed to cross path with someone that she normally wouldn't be able to. It was another schoolmate of hers, from the class with the worst result. Mo Lee sighed as she left Tao Wen's office. She still had to conduct experiments when she returned home. When she was done, it would be midnight already. That day Mo Lee did not return home immediately, but she made a pit stop at a stationery shop near to her school. It was connected to the school via a small alley. Even though the shop was not new, the shop always had the latest stock, and due to the proximity to the school, its business was always booming. Over the past few days, Mo Lee burnt through so many exercise books and pens that even the boss got to know her well. Wait, haven't you come by to buy a thick exercise book from me 2 days earlier? You're already done with it. Girl, you're not eating the paper as lunch, are you? Mo Lee smiled and shook her head. Nah, it's just that the teacher has been giving a lot of exercises lately. She picked a sketchbook. It was perfect for writing down equations and formulas. Suddenly Mo Lee heard commotion coming from outside the store. Yo, isn't this our sister Faye? Are we visiting the stationery store? But why? With your result, it doesn't matter how hard you study. Even a pig likes to study. We better call Guinness Books of Records. Don't waste your money on the stationery. They are of no use to you. Even though the insults were not directed at her, Mo Lee felt goosebumps. Since her transmigration, she couldn't help but wonder how could people so young be so cruel these days. Mo Lee turned and watched a girl walk into the store. She had on the school uniform and a pair of white shoes. She was not tall, her hair was quite oily, and she had a black dot-rimmed glasses sitting on her nose. She entered the store and focused on her purchase as if she couldn't hear the insults. Mo Lee recognized this girl. She was Lin Fei, a girl from her school. In the past, their lives wouldn't have crossed. Mo Li was the school bully and the thorn in many teachers' side. If not for Mo family, Mo Li would have been expelled already. Even though Lin Fei was not good at her studies, she was obedient and quiet. Most of the teachers had no issue with her. In fact, her presence was so unfelt in class that most of the teachers and the students forgot that Lin Fei even existed. Mo Li wasn't one to mind other people's business, so she turned back to the boss. How much are these? Lin Fei carried some snacks and stationery as she lined up behind Mo Li. Her eyes strayed involuntarily towards Mo Li, as if captivated by her presence. Yo, we have another rare guest here today. Is it raining frogs? The voice sounded familiar. Mo Li thought it was Zhou Shi, but she lifted her head and saw it was just Zhou Shi's two lackeys. Someone surely has changed after they scored the top marks. They even knew to visit the stationery shop these days. Mo Li already tried her best to ignore these people, but they kept on appearing in her path like festering mushroom. Mo Li swept a glance over them and showed no reaction to their stinging words. She picked up her paid items and then told the duo who blocked the shop exit. Move out of my way. Chapter 36. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Billiards Translator. Lonely Tree Qin Lu was taken aback by the arrogance Mo Li showed even outside of school. This Qin Lu used to be Zhou Shi's sidekick, but not out of choice. Qin Lu's family was on equal footing with Zhou family. The reason she submitted to Zhou Shi's lackey was because the latter was too aggressively abrasive. Qin Lu had been biding her time for Zhou Shi to fall so she could assume her place, so in a way, she had Mo Li to thanks for exposing the Zhou Shi's real identity. Qin Lu was now out to take over the power void the former sister she had vacated, and what better way to do that than to defeat the adversary who Zhou Shi could not. You're only going to a single competition, do you really need so many things? Sensing the tension in the air, Lin Fei immediately put down her stuff and scuttled away. Boss, I'll buy them next time. I need to hurry back home. Who said you can go? Since you're already playing truancy until so late at night, why not accompany me a little bit longer? Our great Miss Mo isn't afraid now, is she? Qin Lu's lackeys immediately moved to block the two girls' exit. Qin Lu, what are you doing? Mo Li didn't stay late because of truancy, she stayed because she is required to represent our school. Lin Fei swallowed the rest of her words when Qin Lu turned to glare at her. The girl shivered and didn't say anything else. Then, to everyone's surprise, Lin Fei slowly took down her glasses, kept them in the case and put it away neatly. Mo Li gave Lin Fei another once-over. Looks like the girl knows how to defend herself despite her fidgety nature. Is she one of those well-hidden martial arts expert? The kind who hid their true power until they were forced to make their moves. Well, this Lin Fei does fit that bill. Now that I think about it, I have not been in a high school fistfight before. I was too busy studying. Finally, I get to witness one in person. This is quite exciting, I have to admit. Seeing how composed and calm Lin Fei was, Mo Li couldn't help but get a little bit anticipatory. She stared closely at Lin Fei, afraid that she might miss any crucial moment. Lin Fei began by lifting both of her hands. Mo Li thought to herself. It's finally starting. What school of martial arts is she going to use, I wonder? Tai Chi, Taekwondo, Karate. Then Lin Fei continued to raise her arms high above her shoulders. She closed her arms over her head and knelt down. While she did so, Lin Fei pulled on the corner of Mo Li's shirt, signaling for her to do the same. What? What is this? Mo Li's brain short-circuited for a few seconds before she realized Lin Fei was not preparing to teach the girls a lesson, but she was preparing herself to be beaten up. I'm sorry. Please don't hit too hard and spare the face. I promise to not do this again. It didn't look like this was the first time Lin Fei was bullied by this group of girls, as she assumed the submissive position too readily. Mo Li's lips fell open, but she didn't know what to say. This was definitely not what she was expecting. The anticipation that she had earlier was all shattered. But knowing that Lin Fei was a constant bullying target by these girls, a fire burned through Mo Li. Hit you. The moment we lay a finger on you, this despicable Miss Mo Li over here will immediately report us to the school admin and have us expelled. Do you think we're that dumb? Qin Lu looked around, and then an indescribable smile appeared on her face. We'll go over there to settle this instead. Mo Li followed her pointing finger and saw a billiards pool shop. The fact that such a shop was allowed to run its business around a prestigious school was dubious. Perhaps its owner had some connections to the student body here. Miss Mo Li, do you know how to play that game? Lin Fei got up hesitantly from the ground and asked Mo Li in a whisper. No, Mo Li answered honestly, she didn't know anything about billiards. Then again, with the girls crowding around them, forcing them towards the shop, it would appear like now would be the time for Mo Li to get acquainted with the game. Qin Lu looked smug after she briefly introduced the rules to the two girls. Clearly she was very confident in her own ability. Qin Lu opened her palm and someone handed her a cue stick. She walked up to one of the tables and knocked into a white cue ball. The ball knocked into one side of the pool table and then bounced off another. We're deciding the order using the American 8-dot ball rules. The side the cue ball stops closer to will be the first caller. Mo Li nodded. She didn't know anything about the rules, but the explanation was clear enough. Seeing how unfazed Mo Li was, Qin Lu rolled her eyes and then added, by the way, have I told you that we're playing for a bet? Mo Li raised her head and asked, what kind of bet do you have in mind? Qin Lu lifted her chin, the party who loses will have to obey the winner's orders for a whole week. You up for the game? Mo Li looked around the shop and took in the games of the other tables. She made some calculations in her mind. When she was done with the math, she turned back to Qin Lu and said, fine, I hope you won't regret it when the time comes. When she heard that, Qin Lu laughed until she bent over. Billiards was Qin Lu's hobby since she was young and she had been playing it ever since. Chapter 37 You are listening at NovelFull.audio. A mistake translator. Lonely Tree Qin Lu was certain that Lin Fei and Mo Li were newbies. That was confirmed when they were handed the cue sticks. Lin Fei dropped hers and Mo Li held it from the wrong end. Qin Lu smirked. The confidence from getting first place during the mock exam must have gotten to her head. No matter, I'll knock her down a peg. Then we have a deal. Qin Lu already had the plan in her mind. When she won, she would have Mo Li be her slave for the whole week. By then, the cue ball was rolling to a stop. It stopped closer to Qin Lu. It's my ball and I decide to go first. Mo Li nodded. This was the perfect chance for her to observe the game. As expected, Qin Lu did not hold back at all. She pocketed all the balls and didn't give Mo Li and Lin Fei any chance to head to the table. Mo Li had to admit that Qin Lu was a good pool player. Her shots were neat and clean. Her precision and accuracy were not bad too. The skill plus the fact that she was a female soon attracted the attention of the other players. After she made her last shot, Qin Lu stood up, put away the cue stick, and looked at Mo Li. I hear that you're a genius. A genius wouldn't lose to a person like myself, would she? Mo Li didn't answer but stood up straighter. After the worker was done racking the ball, Mo Li chalked the cue stick. But that immediately caused Qin Lu to tut with derision. Even a professional wouldn't do that, that will only increase the friction. Mo Li was not there for an impromptu lesson from Qin Lu, so she ignored her. She decided on her aim, bent down and made her first shot. She pocketed 4 balls with her first shot. Lin Fei, beside Mo Li, gasped with shock. Mo Li's face didn't show it, but she was as shocked as Lin Fei was. She only wanted to pocket one ball to get the feel of things, she didn't expect to perform such an impressive feat. I guess beginner's luck is real. With just one shot, Emily had taken stock of the situation. As Professor Tao would say, everything in this world could be calculated with math. Ignoring the stunned look on Qin Lu's face, Emily moved on to her next shot. Then came her fifth pocket, sixth pocket. This round, Emily didn't give Qin Lu a chance to play at all. I hear this is the girl's first time playing. Are you for real? She looks like a real professional. I'm not kidding you. I saw that she didn't even know how to handle a cue stick earlier. But now. No wonder the girls over there called her a genius. She is indeed one. Emily cleared all the shots and lifted her head at Qin Lu. 3 minutes 41 seconds. Qin Lu frowned, she had no idea what Emily was talking about. Then someone in the audience who took the time gasped, how did she know that? She indeed used 3 minutes and 41 seconds to clear the table. That means she's 34 seconds faster than the other girl. Hearing that, Qin Lu felt like exploding. What is the meaning of this? Is she trying to humiliate me? Lin Fei looked at Emily, her mouth almost forming an O shape. This was Lin Fei's first time holding a cue stick as well, and she still had no idea what was going on. Meanwhile, Emily clearly had already mastered the game. Qin Lu clenched her fists tightly. She gritted her teeth so hard, it felt like they were about to break. She stomped her way to the billiard table. No matter what, I'll have to win today. After all, I was the one who initiated the challenge and the bet. If I lose, where shall I put my face after this? Furthermore, there are quite a number of students in the crowd. If more of them hear of this, I'll follow in the footsteps of Zhou Shi. I'll never allow that to happen. Miss Emily, you're amazing. Lin Fei whispered a cheer before she added in concern. But Qin Lin is not a pushover either. A boy next to Lin Fei overheard this and said, but Qin Lu is not going to win Emily. Qin Lu heard that exchange and raised her eyes at Emily's direction. Emily wasn't looking at her, instead she was taking in the whole scene. There was absolute certainty in her eyes. For some reason, after seeing that, Qin Lu could feel her heart racing. Qin Lu then bent over, used her left hand as support and aimed with her right hand. Emily managed to pocket 4 balls with one shot earlier, and that impressed many people. Qin Lu could do the same thing and even do it better. After all, she was more experienced than Emily was. Unfortunately though, even though Qin Lu started playing billiards since she was a child, she didn't spend much time training technical skill. Instead, she spent more time using the sport to entice the boys and to show off. For that, Qin Lu focused more on adjusting her body postures beside the pool table and striking poses with the cue stick. But this time, Qin Lu swore to concentrate. She was going to show everyone that she was better than Emily. Her fixation with Emily caused the pair of encompassing eyes to suddenly flash in her mind, it caused her heart to skip a beat, and then her right arm pushed without even realizing it. The cue stick hit the ball and instantly Qin Lu wanted to take it back. That shot was too forceful. Her constant wariness towards Emily messed with her cool. Qin Lu watched helplessly as the cue ball knocked around the pool table, and she pocketed not a single ball. L.RG, how is this possible? Qin Lu was speechless. It looks like the newbie, Emily, was about to triumph over her. The stars must not be aligning for her today. Chapter 38. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Charity Ball Translator. Lonely Tree. Since Qin Lu didn't pocket any ball, it was Emily's turn. Emily walked up to the pool table and assumed her position. Emily didn't pay Qin Lu any attention, she was just focused on her game. Qin Lu though took this as an affront, seeing it as Emily's way of belittling her. Qin Lu's fist around the cue stick tightened as she thought about using the stick to stab into Emily's eyes. Emily soon finished the third round with an easy win. Qin Lu recovered in her fourth and fifth round, she was slowly getting back into her groove. As a newbie, Mo Li made no mistake either. Neither party gave the other the chance to breathe. For the last round, Qin Lu made another clumsy mistake due to the pressure. Qin Lu watched Mo Li walk to the table, she refused to believe that beginner's luck could last so long. Qin Lu had no idea that Mo Li had stopped relying on luck after her first shot. With the calculations made from her first shot as well as her observations of the other players, Mo Li had managed to sublimate the game of pool into a mathematical problem to be solved. She calibrated the angle before she made each shot. Now there was only one last black ball left, and Mo Li was feeling fine. This was the first time she took up billiards, but she realized that as long as she could control her angle and force, everything on the pool table could be factored in and calculated. Beware of using up all your luck now or you'll end up in last place at the IMO. The moment Qin Lu said that, Mo Li made her last shot. The result was already simulated in Mo Li's head. The last ball rolled very slowly, giving Qin Lu hope. Stop. 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 Qin Lu stood up with excitement, she still had the chance of turning this around. She was just reaching for her cue stick when the shop exploded with applause and cheers. Lin Fei jumped up and down from excitement. The pool table tremored from her action. Everyone inside the room saw the black ball wobble before it fell into the pocket. The game was over and Mo Li appeared victorious. You've lost. Qin Lu was dumbfounded, she didn't expect to lose to a newbie in the sport that she was best at. You liar. This cannot be your first time playing billiards. The game is foul. Mo Li's performance couldn't be so stable otherwise. Girl, you can't be acting like this. You were the one who said you would go lightly on the other girl because it was her first time playing. You called her a genius earlier but now you call her a liar, pick one. That's right, even if this is not her first time playing, the fact is you have lost. There were some adult players in the shop, they didn't know about Mo Li's history, they were only interested in the game of billiards. However, they were there when Qin Lu made those taunts and bet. They were not going to let her renege on it as she pleased. Qin Lu looked at Mo Li, fine, I admit defeat. She looked at Mo Li with a mixture of hatred and fear. After all, she had bullied her with Zhou Shi before, Mo Li would not spare her now that she was on the chopping block. She had made her bed and now she was to lie in it. To her surprise, Mo Li only picked up her schoolbag and the sketchbook. Then Mo Li turned to Lin Fei whose face was flushed from all the excitement. I don't need you to do anything for me. I only need you to promise that you'll not bully her again. Then Mo Li walked past the stunned Lin Fei and walked out from the shop. Young miss. As she walked out, she saw her driver. Mo Li didn't question why the driver knew where she was, instead she started to ponder about what would happen next. Qin Lu probably covered up the incident at the billiard shop because Mo Li didn't hear any news about it when she arrived at the school the next day. The only change was that there was a box of delicate biscuits left at Mo Li's table. Mo Li caught the shrinking figure at the door and Mo Li smiled at herself. She didn't expose the girl. Mo Li appreciated the gesture. When she returned home, before she could even put down her schoolbag, Mo Li had already sent people to bring in 2 sets of gowns for her. Mo Li frowned and picked one to dress in. When she descended the stairs, her father and big brother were waiting for her. Tonight, we're bringing you to a charity ball. Mo Yun's tone was as chilly as it had been for these past few weeks. Okay. Mo Li nodded. If not for her need to mend the relationship with Mo family, she would never attend events like this. When they arrived at the venue, Mo Li had to admit Mo Yun have good taste. Of the 2 sets of gowns, she picked the one selected by Mo Yun. It was an apricot-colored qipao. It lightened Mo Li's fair skin and accentuated her slender waist. Even with just the softest touch of make-up, Mo Li had an ethereal presence about her. The moment she stepped into the ballroom, she attracted many people's attention. One of them seemed to scan over Mo Li aggressively. Mo Li felt discomfited by the gaze, but when she turned to its source, she spotted nothing there. A graceful woman strode towards them. "Uncle Mo, this is the first time Mo Li attends a ball like this. You and Brother Yun have to go mingle, leave Mo Li with me. I promised to show her around, to introduce her to the way of the socialite." The woman's name was Xiao Yu, her family was family friends with Mo family. The original Mo Li had a good relationship with her. Xiao Yu was the perfect socialite, gentle and gracious. Mo Yun and Mo Yi were not worried leaving Mo Li in her hands. Chapter 39. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Dance Floor Translator. Lonely Tree. Mo Yi nodded his head. Brother Yun, don't worry about leaving Mo Li with me. Xiao Yu turned to Mo Yun to assure him once more. Blushes appeared on her well-painted face. Mo Li looked at Xiao Yu and the information fell into place. Based on her knowledge of the plot, this Xiao Yu wanted to be her sister. In the original story, Xiao Yu had provided Mo Li with many bad ideas for Mo Li so that she could act as the mediator, gaining more chances to interact with Mo Yun. Xiao Yu led Mo Li to a seat by the side and her eyes wandered to a specific corner of the room. Instantly a young man sauntered towards them and extended his hand towards Mo Li in a gentlemanly manner. "Miss Mo, I'm Xiao Yu's cousin on her mother's side. My name is Peng Jian. May I have the opportunity to invite you to a dance?" Mo Li glanced at him and rejected him evenly. "I'm sorry, but I don't know how to dance." Upon hearing Mo Li's words, some of the onlookers shook their heads subtly. This is probably one of those minor families who came not to dance but to expand connections. For a moment, disdain and annoyance crossed Peng Jian's eyes too. "Bitch, who do you think you are?" Xiao Yu's heart was blooming noticing the frown people around them direct at Mo Li, but to her surprise, Mo Li suddenly grasped her hand and placed it on Peng Jian's outstretched palm. "Mr. Peng, Sister Xiao Yu is a very good dancer. Why don't you share this dance with her? Your cousin, so it's perfectly fine for you two to dance together," Mo Li suggested with sincerity. At the same time, her words told the nearby listeners that the reason she wasn't dancing with Peng Jian was because she was not interested in his courtship. This kind of charity ball had a romantic overture. They were for young people from important families to get to know each other better. However, no one was uncouth enough to point that out openly. What Mo Li did was to dress her rejection of Peng Jian in a graceful manner. She had given both parties enough face. However, people had to come to rain on Mo Li's parade. "It's exactly because Peng Jian and I are family that I'm giving him this chance to dance with someone new." Xiao Yu deflected with a graceful smile. "Sister Xiao Yu, why wouldn't you want to dance with Mr. Peng? Is Sister Xiao Yu also waiting for an invitation from someone new?" This retort from Mo Li shut Xiao Yu up because Mo Li had hit the nail on its head. Xiao Yu was waiting for Mo Yun to invite her. Xiao Yu's face dropped. What nonsense is she on about this time? "Sister Xiao Yu, you should dance with Mr. Fong, I can dance by myself. I'm not too good of a dancer, I'm afraid that I might hurt Mr. Peng with my clumsy feet." Xiao Yu glanced at Mo Li as if saying, "If you take the dance floor, I would too." Under the glittering chandelier of the ballroom, Xiao Yu stood next to Peng Jian. Even though Mo Li was alone, she radiated elegance and confidence. A classical music started and Mo Li danced gracefully in her qipao. This was a case of beautiful and handsome people could do no wrong. Mo Li swayed to the music. She wasn't impressing people but she wasn't embarrassing herself either. The fact that she had no partner played to Mo Li's advantage because she could take things at her own rhythm. All in all, there was a charm about her. The same couldn't be said for Xiao Yu. She had already stepped on Peng Jian several times already. Peng Jian could endure it for a minute but not for the whole song. He tried to restrain his displeasure and hoped that Xiao Yu could only keep up with his pace. Xiao Yu and Pang Jian were common dancing partners, but you wouldn't be able to tell that from their many missteps. The reason was because Xiao Yu was constantly distracted. Xiao Yu saw from corner of her eye that Mo Yun was walking their way. She didn't want Mo Yun to get the wrong impression about her and Pang Jian. She was so concerned that she almost tripped if not for Pang Jian saving her at the last moment. The onlookers were surprised by how big of a klutz the young miss of the Xiao family was. They snickered behind her back. Xiao Yu's mistakes reflected badly on her dance partner. Pang Jian was fuming. He had no idea what was wrong with Xiao Yu that day. She kept making amateurish mistakes. After one too many steps on his shoes, Pang Jian couldn't hold his temper in anymore. With everyone watching, Pang Jian let go of Xiao Yu and stomped towards Mo Li. It was embarrassing to be abandoned, but Xiao Yu was even more interested to see what Pang Jian would do to Mo Li, so she quickly righted herself and turned to Mo Li's direction. Mo Li saw Pang Jian stride towards her. As the music changed, Mo Li slipped through the crowd and disappeared. She had no interest of dancing with that Pang Jian, plus dancing was more taxing than she thought. Her legs were feeling the pain and she just wanted to find a place to rest. Following the signs, she arrived at the lounge on the second floor. Seeing as the door was open, she walked in. The lounge was more like a small drawing room. There were bathrooms to the left and right of the room, while deeper in the room was a bedroom. In the middle of the room was a coffee table with a laptop. Mo Li was impressed by the service here. Incidentally, there were things that she needed to do online, so she threw off her shoes, leaned against the sofa, picked up the laptop and manipulated it skillfully. She was logging into a website that she frequented. Before she could log into her account, someone reached out to grab her slender wrist. Mo Li closed the window as fast as she could and returned the screen to the desktop. Her movement was so fast that Kuan Yu thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. We meet again. Chapter 40. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Someone outside the door. Translator. Lonely Tree. The gentle and brisk male voice sounded softly beside Mo Li's ears. Mo Li had to look at the man's face for a while before she remembered who the man was. It was the homeless man from the hospital. Then again, he couldn't be homeless if he was invited to an event like this. For a moment, Mo Li felt like she had wasted her food that day. What were you looking at on the computer just now? Mo Li extricated herself from Kuan Yu's grasp and made to escape. She was ready to stand up when Kuan Yu said, "Wasn't that the website for the International Sacred Heart Medical Research Center?" There was an interested tone in Kuan Yu's voice. Not everyone would be given access to Sacred Heart's website. Only people with authorization code could access it. The website was an archive for academic theses collected from many research centers across the globe. The membership was open only to the medical elites, so how did this girl get in? Mo Li was equally surprised that this man knew Sacred Heart. Thankfully, she didn't have time to log into her personal account but only stopped at the website's front page. My third brother's leg is injured. I borrowed an account to contact the doctors from Sacred Heart, hoping that they'd come to help him. Mo Li gave a reasonable excuse. Kuan Yu approached the girl like a stalking panther. Mo Li, who was unused to close contact, leaned backwards until she was basically sinking into the cushion of the soda. The two looked at each other. Kuan Li's eyes were full of inquiry, but Mo Li's eyes were only filled with impatience. "Sir, please stay away from me. I have to return to the ball downstairs." Mo Li had more than enough interaction with this strange man. She just wanted to leave now. "My pretty lady, in order to thank you for your previous meal, I can give you one promise of mine. Furthermore, there is another present that I've prepared for you inside this laptop, something that you'll love." Mo Li frowned as she looked at Kuan Yu. "Wait, do you know me? Why would you prepare a present for me?" Kuan Yu smiled and didn't answer. He tilted his head at the laptop. Only then Mo Lee realized the laptop belonged to Kuan Yu. Earlier, she hurried to log onto the Sacred Heart website so she didn't notice there was a folder on the desktop. Interestingly enough, it was entitled with the date when she had allegedly run into Mo Zheng. Mo Lee's interest was piqued. She clicked open the folder and realized there were several video files inside. She turned her gaze to Kuan Yu, waiting for his explanation. Being stared by Mo Lee's glittering eyes, Kuan Yu had the urge to grab her and plant kisses on her flawless face, but he was afraid that it would frighten her away. So he turned his attention to the laptop instead. These are the video footage from the car accident site of your third brother. According to the police, the traffic cams near that area have all been mysteriously ruined. So I found people to salvage from the ruin. I'm still working on the rest of the cam footage, but take a look at these, you'll find someone unexpected in them. Mo Lee looked at the man in surprise. The car which ran into Mo Zheng was Mo Yi's birthday present for Mo Lee. Combine that with Mo Zheng's accusation, no one believed her argument that she was not the culprit. Normally the car was driven by her driver, but that day the driver was missing. Her family refused to side with her, but she had found support instead in this man whom she had just met once. Mo Lee couldn't describe what she was feeling. If the original Mo Lee had met such a person, would she have been spared an early death? Kuan Yu saw the girl sink into deep contemplation, regret lacing her eyes. He wondered what she was thinking and couldn't help himself from leaning in closer to observe. Mo Lee was startled by his action. As she leaned away, she noticed how pale Kuan Yu's face was. She was also reminded of the circumstances from the last time they met. She diagnosed him instantly with having a bad heart. Since he had shown her such kindness, Mo Lee made the decision to help this strange man, to heal him back to health. Thank you for the present, I like it very much. I owe you one. I will repay you when I have the chance. What is your name? Mo Lee would have to take a deeper examination of his body to confirm her prognosis, so she didn't bring up the promise that she made to herself. The name's Kuan Yu, so now you owe me one and I owe you one. I see a lot more interactions between us in the future. Kuan Yu said as he noticed the girl blush due to his increasing approach. Mo Lee was about to say something else when a series of hurried footsteps came from the door. Then it was followed by Xiao Yu's disappointed voice. Uncle Mo, I saw Mo Lee come this way. It should be this room. Pang Jian was with her all the time, I'm sure they how to conduct them at a place like this. Xiao Yu made it sound like Mo Lee and Pang Jian were doing something unbecoming. Mo Yi and Mo Yun followed behind her with dark expressions. After they shared a look, Mo Yun knocked on the door. Mo Lee heard them and quickly pushed Kuan Yu away, they were in too compromising of a posture. As fate would have it, Kuan Yu's sickness kicked in and he lost consciousness. The entire weight of his body fell on Mo Lee. Mo Lee tried to shake him off, but he was too heavy. Mo Lee's heart fluttered further when she realized she forgot to lock the door after she came in. She worried that the relationship that she so painstakingly rebuilt with her father and brother would be shattered when they saw this. However, the man who leaned on top of her refused to move. Mo Lee was desperate that her eyes watered. In her desperation, she turned to bite on the man's wrist which laid next to her head, trying to wake the man. At that moment, Mo Yi and Mo Yun slowly pushed open the door. And Mo Lee was still trapped under Kuan Yu, his large and muscular body trapping her underneath him.